Texas Forestry Association is celebrating its 100th anniversary, a milestone that few organizations ever realize. This is a brief look at the formation, the people, and some of the programs that have been part of the association's many accomplishments. The year was 1914, when 20 conservationists met in Temple, Texas, to establish the Texas Forestry Association. Since that meeting 100 years ago, TFA has grown to 3,000 members who represent private forest landowners, logging contractors, consulting foresters, and processing mills. Mr. W. Goodrich Jones is the founding father of TFA and also known as the father of forestry in Texas. Jones was a banker from Temple who spent his spare time nursing pecan trees to life in tin cans and planting hackberry trees along the streets of Temple. He was known as Hackberry Jones in those days. It was Jones who in the late 1880s was commissioned by the National Bureau of Forestry to survey the condition of forests in Texas. These were the years of the cutout and get-out logging practices, and Jones' findings identified the need for a state forestry agency. At the meeting in Temple in November of 1914, the Texas Forestry Association was formed with the initial purpose of lobbying the state legislature to create a state Department of Forestry and develop a comprehensive forestry conservation program. Help in the legislature came from an unlikely candidate. El Paso Representative Richard F. Burgess, a conservationist and friend of Jones, spearheaded legislation in 1915 calling for the creation of a state forestry agency. The first two state foresters were key in laying the foundation for the development of the programs that are in place today by the Texas A&M Forest Service. J. H. Foster, a forestry graduate of Yale University, served as the first state forester until February of 1918. E. O. Siki, a graduate of the University of Nebraska, was serving as the deputy state forester of Oregon when he was hired to become the second state forester in Texas. Siki served from May of 1918 until his retirement in 1942. During the history of the agency, there have only been 8 men serve as the Director State Forester. Tom Bogus is the current director of the Texas A&M Forest Service. Tom also served as TFA's president in 2007. The history of Texas Forestry Association is tied directly to the Department of Forestry, renamed the Texas Department of Forestry, then renamed the Texas Forest Service, and more recently renamed the Texas A&M Forest Service. In the early years, TFA was located on the Texas A&M University campus with the State Department of Forestry. The state foresters served as the secretary of the association, and the TFA membership elected its officers. Jones served as TFA's first president until 1921. Much of the work through TFA was directed at serving as the legislative voice for forestry at the state capitol. Once again, the El Paso connection to TFA's early history came forward when Richard Burgess was elected TFA's second president in 1922. Burgess served as president for 2 years. Over Texas Forestry Association's 100-year history, there have been 76 leaders representing landowners, lumbermen, consulting foresters, loggers, and agencies who have served as TFA president. Steve Cardell, a pulpwood producer from San Augustine, Texas, served as the TFA president in 1964 during TFA's 50th golden anniversary year. Lee Carroll, Southwest Regional Manager for Campbell Global in Diboll, is TFA's president during the centennial year. Bruce Miles was the first director of the Texas Forest Service to be elected TFA president in 1993. The first female to be elected TFA president was Joy Purfirst, a forest landowner, in 2005. Stan Lindsay, area superintendent for International Paper Company in Nacogdoches, served as TFA's president in 1981, and his daughter, Beverly Lindsay, manager of the Arbor Gin Tree Nursery in Bullard, served as TFA's president in 2010. J. H. Foster is credited for establishing the foundation for an operational forest conservation program where none had existed before by initiating the release of informational bulletins to educate landowners on the management and protection of their forest resource. E.O. Seekey is also recognized for his achievements in his work with private landowners in forest fire prevention, the acquisition of state forests, the development of tree nurseries, and his support of public education. Seekey left a portion of his estate to finance forestry scholarships, youth forestry short courses, and seedlings for youth. TFA's Educational Fund was a benefactor and continues to support TFA's educational programs today. In 1919, the first official forestry publication, Texas Forest News, was produced and sent out bi-monthly. This was a joint effort by TFS and TFA. TFA dues help fund the cost of printing and postage. Today, TFA's Texas Forestry is the association's monthly publication sent to members. Weekly email updates are sent out to members, keeping them aware of federal, state, and local issues that impact the forestry community. TFA has a history of stepping up to lead the forest conservation programs that have been part of the tree planting and management of our East Texas forest. The 40s were also the beginning of two conservation programs for youth. The first was the Forestry Resource Short Course, which was sponsored by TFS and TFA, providing outdoor educational training in forestry to 4-H and FFA youth ages 13 to 15. The first Forestry Resource Short Course was held near Kirbyville at the E.O. Seekey State Forest in 1946. During the history of this program, other camps were held in Smith County at Camp Tyler, Caddo Lake State Park near Karnak, Camp Nawana near Woodville, 4-H Conservation Camp near Huntsville, at SWEPCO's facilities on Lake of the Pines near Avenger, and finally at the Piney Woods Conservation Center, which is owned and operated by Stephen F. Austin State University. When the Forestry Short Course ended in 1988, TFA redesigned the program to introduce educators to the forestry community by launching the Teachers Conservation Institute in 1990. TCI is a week-long outdoor educational program that introduces educators to Project Learning Tree and Project Wild, which are nationally recognized programs that allow educators to use the outdoors as a classroom. To date, over 1,600 educators from across the state have gone through TCI, and many have returned for advanced training opportunities. Each year, TFA contracts with SFA for the use of the Piney Woods Conservation Center as the site for TCI. Texas Forestry Association and Texas A&M Forest Service are the state co-coordinators of the National Project Learning Tree Program, which came to Texas in 1985 through the efforts of James Webster, Legislative Vice President for Kirby Lumber Company in Houston and a former TFA president. Each year, PLT workshops are held across the state with the purpose of introducing educators to the PLT materials that can be incorporated into their classroom instruction. Approximately 1,500 teachers attend these workshops each year. The second youth program, launched in the 40s, was the Youth Seedling Program. In 1947, TFA distributed 294,000 seedlings to 4-H, FFA, and Boy Scouts to encourage the planting of our forest resource. The distribution of seedlings continues today with seedling giveaway programs at the state capitol, the State Fair of Texas, and Johnson Space Center. Following Hurricane Rita, TFA organized seedling giveaway programs in several counties that were impacted by this storm. In 1944, Texas joined the American Tree Farm System under the joint sponsorship of Texas Forestry Association, Texas Forest Service, Southern Pine Association, and the East Texas Chamber of Commerce. The Tree Farm program encourages private landowners to practice good forestry management. Today, the Texas Tree Farm Program is an internationally recognized forest certification program. TFA has served as the state sponsor since 1954. Currently, there are 2,470 tree farms representing 900,000 acres under the certification program, which has helped ensure the future of our forest resource in Texas for the past 70 years. Another reforestation program that gained national recognition was the creation of the Texas Reforestation Foundation in 1980. This privately funded cost-share program encouraged private landowners to replant after final harvest. TFA served as secretary, and TFS foresters provided the contact with landowners for the tree planting on private lands. Funding came from Forest Products Mills based on a voluntary dues assessment. During the history of the Texas Reforestation Foundation, which ended in 2009, landowners received $8.9 million in cost-share funding, which assisted in the planting of 194,101 acres in 46 counties across East Texas. Brady Wadsworth, St. Regis in Lufkin, and Bill Hammock, Champion International in Huntsville, were key leaders in establishing the foundation. Both of these men are past TFA presidents. In 1985, TRE was honored with the Presidential C Flag Award from President Ronald Reagan. This award recognized the contributions and voluntary programs from the private sector that benefit local and state economies. In 1989, TRE received a Certificate of Appreciation from Governor William Clements, recognizing the program's volunteer commitment to the state of Texas. Today, the forestry community plants over 75 million trees each year, ensuring that our forests are being renewed for future generations to enjoy. It was in 1949 that Texas Forestry Association was reorganized and moved its office from College Station to Lufkin. The reorganization included the hiring of a full-time executive secretary to manage the association. Following his retirement from the U.S. Forest Service, L.L. Bishop became the first executive secretary of TFA. Mr. Bishop was followed by Bruce Stewart, who served as executive secretary from 1952 to 1954. Ed Wagoner started as part-time TFA and part-time TFS in 1955, and in 1956 was named the executive secretary and served through 1983. Both Stewart and Wagoner served on the TFS staff prior to coming to TFA. Ron Hufford has served as the executive director since January 1984, coming to TFA from the Southern Forest Products Association. The TFA office was first established in 1949 in the Thrash Building in downtown Lufkin. The office moved several times, occupying the Perry Building and the Denman Building, before moving to the current TFA headquarters on Atkinson Drive. The dedication of the TFA building was held in 1967, with Ray Gibson serving as TFA president, and Doris and Luther Jones, descendants of W. Goodrich Jones, cutting the ribbon to officially open the TFA office. TFA underwent another major reorganization in 1970 with the merger of TFA with the Texas Manufacturers Association. With this merger, TFA maintained its name and location and was strengthened by adding processing mills to the membership. In 1972, the Texas Forestry Museum was incorporated under the direction of TFA and the local Kiwanis Club. 4 years later, in 1976, the Forestry Museum opened its doors to the public and was dedicated as a bicentennial project. The Forestry Museum has undergone several upgrades to its facilities and the exhibits which showcase the history of the forest resource, people, and life of sawmill towns in East Texas. Carol Riggs served as the first full-time museum director, and Rachel Collins currently serves in that capacity. TFA underwent yet another reorganization in 1989 with the formation of councils that function under the umbrella of the association. The Texas Logging Council and the Texas Forest Landowners Council were established to address the needs and issues facing the logging community and the needs and issues facing private forest landowners. Since that time, the association has added the Texas Wood Preservers Advisory Council and the Texas Burn Managers Council to the annual programs that are managed by TFA. In the 1990s, the forestry industry saw the need to take an active role in the certification of forest lands to meet the growing demands for green products. TFA serves as the state sponsor of the Sustainable Forestry Initiative Program, which is an internationally recognized wood certification program that requires third-party audit of forest management and harvesting practices and documentation of logging contractors and forest managers meeting initial and annual training requirements of the program. Texas Forestry Association began 100 years ago with the purpose of lobbying the state legislature to create a state Department of Forestry. The association continues to be active in federal, state, and local issues that affect the membership. Timber theft laws have been strengthened. Transportation laws allowing the wood products from the point of harvest to the manufacturing facilities have been passed, as well as tax incentive laws that encourage private landowners to plant, manage, and invest into the future of our forest resource. What a legacy! It is incredible that what began as a group of conservationists concerned about the state of Texas forests has lasted 100 years. There have been many changes as logging has changed. The forests are being replanted, and programs have been established to meet the changing needs of the public for wood products. Texas Forestry Association has been and will continue to be the voice of forestry as we look to the future in the next 100 years.